Welcome to Channel Security Secrets. I'm Lou Raban. On this show, we expose the untold secrets and critical insights from the people shaping the future of cybersecurity sales in the Trusted Advisor channel. If you're looking to up your game around selling security, stick around. Channel Security Secrets is brought to you by Cyber Defense Group, on a mission to shift cybersecurity from reactive to resilient. I'm really excited to speak with today's guest. He's a cybersecurity leader, go-to-market coach, published author, and U.S. Army veteran. As a global ambassador on the Council for Responsible AI, he is shaping the ethical future of AI in cybersecurity. He's a former Army Ranger who led cyber teams and infantry platoons in Afghanistan, and now acts as a lifetime member of the MCPA, or Military Cyber Professionals Association. He's currently Vice President of Cloud Resilience at Avant Communications. Stephen Semmelroth, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lou. Glad to be here. It's always weird kind of, hearing the stuff that you've done in the past. I introduced myself as Stephen.
Yeah, well, we know that you're humble, but you're also a badass. So as one of the first guests on this podcast, I am very, very honored to have you here. And I can't wait because we're going to have a great conversation. And with that, I'm going to just jump right into it. This is Channel Security Secrets. So I want to hear, what is the biggest secret to your success, which is very deep in the channel?
Usually we talk about success in terms of knowledge, skills, and either abilities or behaviors. And so I'd say probably the first part is the foundation of the knowledge of kind of what's going on in the industry and tech and cyber. I can give a big shout out to like my mentors when I was in the military, the education that we had in the military, and the books that were written, like Steal This Computer book versions 1, 2, 3, and 4 from years and years and years ago. Books like Hackers, the Heroes of the Computer Revolution. We're going way back here. A lot of those knowledge fundamentals, and then the skills were developed from coaches and mentors like Kim Baker when I was at Stratacore, and the amount of investment that he put in me personally to build that skill. But I would say, as those are kind of like the foundations of the pyramid, the top of the pyramid, I think, has been the ability to translate highly technical content and roadblocks into meaningful stories that non-tech executives can use to take an action. And it's been tough to do that, and you do have to have that fundamental of tech. At least I had to have that to get to that point. But the knowledge, skills, and then the abilities, I oftentimes see myself as a coach or translator more than I do almost anything else.
Yeah, big time. You are that for sure. And everyone knows who you are in the channel when it comes to security because of that. You also mentioned this book that I got to
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Knowing above and below the line. And you mentioned, so obviously books and reading are really important, and following the principles in that book. I haven't cracked it yet, but what can you tell me about this? Yeah, I got it based on your recommendation, and that's why it's sitting on my desk, because it's next in the queue. You think that there's some secrets in there that people can use?
Yeah. So when I was a trusted advisor at Stratacore before coming to Avant, a shout out to Dom Singer, who kind of sat me down and he goes, "Stephen, you need to read this book. This is the next book on your list of professional development." And when he said that, first off, I'll listen to mentors like Dom. But when Dom said that, I kind of sat back and went, another sales book. I'm only reading this because you asked me to read it, or told me to read it more emphatically. And then I was doing some drywall work at the last house that we had, and I'm doing drywall and I'm painting and I'm listening to the book on audio, probably at 2x because I'm painting and I can actually kind of focus. And uh, uh, as he got more into it, as Skip Miller got more into the content, I went, oh man, and I sat down. I took my, the latex gloves off that I was using because I was painting and making a big old mess. And I hopped on Amazon and ordered the book in print copy, which for me is, at least at that point in my life, was a big litmus test of, okay, this is good, and I got to spend some more time onto it. And it's right here it's in my quick grab book area because I recommend it so much. But I've got like there's perceived quality of fit type things. I've got notes all over this book, and I think for me the reason that when Skip Miller wrote this that it resonated so well is for me it translated the fundamentals of leadership and change management that I learned in the military to the corporate world, and did it so simply that it was really easy for me to latch onto. And this has been sort of kind of like one of those guiding azimuths as I build out training for the industry, that I try to focus a pretty substantial amount of our training wrapped around this book in particular. I think it does a really great job of modeling the sales process, the value prop, and figuring out who it is that we're really talking to on the other side of the table when we support trusted advisors out with their clients in the field.
Good stuff. So basically, the biggest secret would be one is obviously, providing information, providing value. The other is, reading the right books. So this book in particular, I know that you mentioned like speaking to different stakeholders, controlling the tempo of a sale, jumping around the chart. Like what can you tell me about that when a security deal is coming in and there's some maneuvering that has to happen?
So when we go back, I think one of those fundamentals that most of the people in sales in this channel have learned is that um, finding the compelling event and then translating that into a plan is often the key to change management. And I think that sales is often the key to change management, right? Like, what is it we're going to change? How is the world change? I'll throw a little Andy Raskin on it. How is the world changed today such that you must do something or change yourself? And um, one of the theses of Skip Miller's book is that when we go back to the basics, especially for salespeople, the things that they learned as like a BDR, they resonate and they work extraordinarily well. So we talk about like a security deal going from identification and qualification, and then maintaining that urgency to get to close, right? Often one of those fundamentals that I pulled back out of Skip Miller's book was building a visual timeline for clients. And I think a lot of salespeople have gotten away from some of those fundamentals. I think it's really easy to focus on like feature, function, capability, differentiator, where the people, the talent are located that you're bringing in to solve the problem. But building that timeline is a visual representation of urgency.
Mm. Mm.
And as we kind of started, talking through and teaching timelines in our events across the country, around the world, I did not anticipate the number of senior, late stage career sellers that would come up after like keynotes or after presentations and say things like, "Oh my gosh, I've strayed so far away from my fundamentals. I've really invested into the art of selling and I forgot the science of selling."
Mm.
And it's so important to blend both.
So that timeline that you're talking about, visual timeline, you mean specifically like here's when kickoff is, here's how the project's going to go, here's roughly where you will be in X amount of time, 6, 12 months after doing this stuff. That's what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep. So let's see if I can find an actual timeline here. Skip calls it the I date, which is the implementation date. And that's when the go live really has to happen. And so we've kind of adapted it for channel sales and for security a little bit more. But if the client has an incumbent right now, what we've been really doing and looking at and training on is the two primary dates of when do they have to give notice to the incumbent, and then when is their implementation date? Because sometimes the notification date to the incumbent is the key thing that moves this along. Because they might have to have a 90-day notification clause in there.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes it's the implementation date, like, driven by private equity change or a merger and acquisition or something. And so often we go from there to backwards planning. And if we don't have like a meaningful driver, maybe it's greenfield and something the client wants to do, then usually the tactic that we take is we start looking at the project timeline itself. What are the other projects and priorities that exist? And where does it fit in that? Where will the client's people have the capacity to even do a project, whether it's software-based or more consulting-based, because there's so many different layers to this. And then we use those opportunity windows, those change windows, as kind of the driver to work backwards from. And that process, then we've run kind of this timeline process now, we'll say dozens and dozens of times, maybe 100 times. I don't know. I haven't tracked this specifically. But when we've run those timelines, a good portion of the time of the opportunities when we're helping clients work through this, the conversation starts off with, oh, my renewal's not until, a year from now. And then by the time we look at change windows and implementation date and notice date, and we work backwards, et cetera, by the end of a call, they're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm 3 weeks behind in my process.
Yeah. So having that visual tool to give them a timeline, that's a great sales tool, and that helps close deals. In any case, it doesn't matter whether it's security or not.
Because it's not my urgency, it's the client's urgency.
And pain, right? It's all about the pain. Or whether it's immediate or future. What about the number one piece of advice specifically around security? There's a lot of TAs that are trying to sell security. We come across it a lot. That's really the reason that we started this podcast too, because so many people want to get into selling security as a trusted advisor in the channel. What kind of advice can you give to the TAs that have never sold security before?
Yeah, it's so much easier than they think. It's so much easier than they think. And when I sit down with a trusted advisor that wants to get into selling security, one of the first questions we ask is, what is your key differentiator right now? What's your key differentiator? What's your value prop? What are you really good at selling? What's the base of clients that you have today, and what have you sold into that base? Because the add-ons are the next best thing to do. So if you talk to a client or a trusted advisor, if you talk to a trusted advisor that has sold connectivity for the last 15 years, really difficult for them to go from connectivity into managed detection and response, right?
Technically, yes.
Yep, it could be. So then we'll start with, okay, well, what about zero trust network access? Or even easier than that, DDoS. If you're selling circuits, sell DDoS. Why? Because if they start with that, it's basically some objection handling and not much more. And it gets the trusted advisor repetitions at something that's just outside of their comfort zone and not too far out of their comfort zone. And then they start getting reps of going, oh, you know what? I can do security. I've got this capacity to do security. And you go, okay, what's next after that? If they're cloud, then we say, okay, great, cloud. Well, maybe how are you going to govern the cloud? Or what about backup and disaster recovery? Probably the easiest add-on. And then your messaging, when as a trusted advisor, when you have these starting conversations with your clients, you're telling them that you do security. Next thing you know, they're coming to you for all of the fractional CISO or the restructure of their system. You start to be more indispensable to your clients, and you're starting to upsell, cross-sell into more things, and you're really helping them get to that next phase or move that next needle or get to the next milestone or get to that next summit along the ridgeline of their journey.
Yeah, great advice. How do you address the fear of the deeper conversation, because that's what we see a lot too, right? It's like, well, I want to talk about security, but I don't know enough about it. And I'm afraid that they're going to just start talking, like even backup and disaster recovery, business continuity, things like that. Like if they've never sold that before and they just put out a buzzword or two, we've gotten a lot of pushback like, well, we don't understand it. So we need to understand it first.
So I go back to the genesis of why this go-to-market motion exists in the first place. This is the business of, I got a guy for that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the trusted advisor does not have to be the technical expert, nor should they be in most cases. And so often what we train trusted advisors on is very simple. You as the trusted advisor do not have to design and build airplanes. All you got to do is sell seats.
Mm. Yeah.
Sell tickets. That's it.
Open the airplane door, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Flight 93.
Right. The pilots and the air, whatever, hostess or hostesses are going to take care of you. Yeah, big time.
Absolutely. Like you don't have to know how each of those little fins around the turbines are stamped and then pressed and then soldered and welded. You don't have, no. Do you want to go from O'Hare to San Francisco? Yeah, we've got competitive rates for that, and you're going to love the experience.
Exactly. Get on board, or yeah, we'll have an agent speak to you about that. The agent being, now the supplier, like us, where we would be able to have that conversation, navigate it.
No, I said something there that I think I should probably do a little expansion on, if you don't mind.
Go for it. Yeah.
Then the next step, it's pretty cheekily that I can say, oh yeah, we're in the business of I know a guy. But there's also a really important other distinction here, is that when trusted advisors look at the buyer persona they're most comfortable with, if it's a director of IT, well, we're going to kind of pick those next security adjacent things that buyer persona wants. And what most people are actually scared of is not the technical discussions. What most people are actually scared of is the CISO as a buyer persona.
Oh, yeah.
Because the CISO happens to be a technical expert, and they're often the smartest person in the room. I'll give another shout out here. Let's see, do I have the copy over here? I do. Christian Espinosa actually tells in this book here called The Smartest Person in the Room, my buddy Christian says, hey, CISOs, stop being jerks. That's basically the thesis of the book, and it's a great book.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the vendor abuse. There's a certain type of person, they say you can tell a person by the way they treat, hired help or waiters and waitresses and stuff. You can also tell a person by the way they treat a vendor, right? And unfortunately, we've come across this often where vendors are just like, you're bothering me. You're at, buy me some steak dinners. You're just a tool. There's humans behind this. So I think, yeah, that's maybe a little bit of the trepidation too exists because trusted advisors have had that experience where they've gotten kicked and beat up because they're salespeople. They're going out, they're asking for something. And these people sometimes that are in the position of making decisions take advantage of that, no doubt.
Now let's talk some dollars real fast. The biggest security deals are often sold to the CIO, not the CISO.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
So if we look at it, the CISO most companies still owns infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do they want? They want secure infrastructure. So if we dive deep into that the CISO owns backup and disaster recovery. They own The CIO owns infrastructure. They own backup and disaster recovery. They own connectivity, secure connectivity. They own these really big spend items that often the CISO gets kind of bolted on at the end.
Yep, definitely.
Now, we say shift left and do security early and all this sort of stuff. In the end, the CISO still has a limited scope of what they can do in the organization, and the CIO still controls it all. So the CIO's budget for backup and disaster recovery is sometimes bigger than the CISO's entire program budget.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. And we look at even fractional CISO types of things. Most of those can be huge deals on the order of dozens of thousands of dollars a month because you're outsourcing a program. And oftentimes, ideal client means they don't even have a CISO, or the CISO is more of a program manager, and somebody's still got to come in and do the work.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, why should TAs sell security? Going back to your original, where they're saying, hey, I connectivity. Those deals are really easy. This stuff that we're talking about right now is can be complex. Navigating the C-suite. A lot of times they're not even speaking to the C-suite, right? They're speaking to someone in the IT world. Therefore, how do you talk to TAs when they're like, I don't even want to sell security. It's too complex. Like, why should they do it?
First off, start easy. Start easy, start small. Second, if we look at just pure connectivity sales and the uplift for DDoS, you're looking at somewhere between a 4 and 12% uplift on the total deal size. So there's a financial, like you sold 10 things. Do you want to sell another one? You said for every $10 here, you get an extra dollar in DDoS. So just that one little transactional objection handling, put it on the purchase order, is a great place to start for a 10% uplift. Like heck, if your growth is 20 or 30% per year and you can get a third of that just by adding DDoS, now you need less logos to sell to.
Yeah, no brainer.
Yep. When we look at cloud and backup and disaster recovery and some of those other categories, those are some of the easiest upsells in channel. And again, the dollars just make sense. Somewhere on the order of, call it 10 to 15% of an uplift onto what you're already doing and really, really good at right now and focused on objection handling.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. Pure security. Now I'm going to answer this for you too. For pure security, one of the things that we're finding is the trusted advisors that do have those reps, right? They've got those repetitions. They've done those training. They've really gotten to know maybe just a couple key vendors that have picked one line item that matches their base. Like if you're in the mid-market or lower enterprise, like fractional CISO or outsourcing consulting, that program's a really, really, really good fit. If that's your base, they match so well. It's something that allows you to go back to your base and allows you to talk about outcomes in the business and makes you sticky across the organization. So oftentimes, selling security is a part of the journey. It's not the destination, and it unlocks all these other doors because it touches everything else that you're already doing. And it really messages, I'm an advisor because I'm helping you think about the things that are important to you, Mr. and Miss Client.
Yeah, and building trust. I mean, that's one thing that we speak about as well as, the deal, if you're going to do data center, if you're used to doing data center as a TA, multi-million-dollar deal, you're going to get a nice, commission check from that. And it's not that complex. You need, how much capacity, et cetera, where in the world. Okay, here's the, get the 3 quotes, et cetera. Much easier than sometimes a complex security sale, but that's one-time transactional. Okay, maybe they sign a 3-year deal and you're done. However, what the trust that gets built by successfully delivering, good security program or good security outcomes, is really that builds onto all the other things that you're talking about. The stickiness, the saying, "Oh wow, you did such a good job introducing me for security, and we're cranking on that now. Can you show me more data center? Can you show me more bandwidth or voice, whatever?" So. Yeah, I think that's been our experience too, but sometimes it's hard to explain that.
Well, I think it is hard to explain it, and that's kind of why oftentimes we go back to when we talk to a trusted advisor and we help them pick the play, right? Because it's not most trusted advisors are not ready to fully whole hog sell security.
Right.
But when we sit back and look at their base and pick the security play that matches their base, now instead of having to learn all of security, maybe they learn one segment of it and start there and build those reps. Right? So like the difference between a Fortune 100 financial client is very different than a mid-market manufacturing company.
Oh yeah.
So what does your base do? What do they want? What's your buyer persona? What's that next phase? Maybe it's managed detection and response. Maybe it's MSSP. Maybe it's some sort of consulting layer on top of that. Maybe it's having somebody come in and kind of retool all of your security functions on top of some of your other systems where you've got a cost advantage. So now you can share that costing across multiple programs like that. Like these, just what this one thread that matches your base. Let's start there.
Yeah. And are you seeing a lot with a different, like, it used to be healthcare and finance, but now different verticals, different industries that are now taking security a bit more seriously?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think generative AI is really emphasizing what we already knew in the industry. And I say that because um, Expedient does a good job promoting what they call the 5 AI truths. And their number 5 is that employees are already using AI. It's kind of like the shadow AI problem, which is it's just a rebranded version of what we called the shadow IT program, a decade ago, right?
Yep.
So when we dig into it, um, the the fear of AI is that a company's superpower, their data, their intellectual property, is being siphoned out of their company. That's a very valid fear. So what we say is like, okay, great. How do we put some controls around that and do it in a meaningful way? Put some governance bolted onto it. So like, who's allowed to do what, where, when, why, how? Gee, that sounds an awful lot like a security program, doesn't it, Lou?
Yeah. Oh, big time. And everyone, to your point, it's every industry. It's not that's not just a healthcare finance issue. And traditionally it's been because they've been the ones that have been the highest regulated, right? But now I think that no one can dodge the bullet. You saw about the SharePoint vulnerability that was just released. It's stuff like that. And that hits legacy companies because it's legacy companies that are or legacy organizations that are hosting SharePoint on-prem. Like who the hell's doing that?
A lot.
A lot of companies.
The
Yeah.
addressable market for on-prem is still extraordinary.
Huge, and it's almost always done, kludged together without proper segmentation and things like that. So, yeah, so you would agree, yeah, it's expanding beyond the traditional industries where, yeah, we're definitely seeing gaming, definitely a lot of manufacturing, which has OT issues as well, yeah,
We're seeing AI, generative AI specifically, being the compelling event that's causing companies to go relook their strategy for everything, especially security, because there's so much fear about losing their own superpower.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. We had a discussion with. It was actually a recruiter last week. I was speaking to someone, and they were like, "Wow, AI this and what is, like how can someone get an AI security?" I said, again, to your point about the basics in selling, the basics in security. It's like, well, where is your data? AI security is data security because, to your point, the IP could be going out the door because you don't have the proper controls to know when your data is going out the door. So it's funny how it all comes down to back to basics, right?
Yep. It's going back to the basics, whether it's a sales process or security process or AI. It's the same problem, just reskinned.
Yeah, big time. So last question on the TA front. If a TA wants to get ramped quickly in selling security, what's your advice? And before you answer, I will interject that Avant I know has a lot of we sponsor some of these elevates obviously and stuff. So I'm assuming that's going to be one of the ways. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So make sure you come to the Avant Special Forces Summit this September. Uh, so we've built a substantial amount of content to try to make this easy. So um, everything from how do you go tell your clients that you play in the space to targeting and prospecting and trying to understand some of the stories that are out there. So we have case studies about like the Conti ransomware group that's now been disbanded and it's kind of repopped its head up in different ways. But we've got these stories that exist about what the threat model looks like. And then we've got here's how to go sell it. And We also, if you're more technical, we've got those things around like, gee, what the hell are all these stupid acronyms? Which ones do I need to pay attention to? And I often say that acronyms are a distraction because there's 800 million acronyms in this space, and each of those are worth $1. So do you want $1 or do you want to go transform your clients in a more meaningful way where the outcomes are aligned with capturing revenue? Which I stole from you, by the way.
Yeah, you didn't steal anything. I love it. It's the way the whole industry is going. But yeah, I'm all about the outcomes.
But it's super relevant here, right?
Yeah.
Like the acronyms are often a distraction for change. And the outcomes are keep the business up and running, prevent against the bad guys, whether they're in a different country or your employees, and keep the business up and running. Wait, that's two of the top three things. Weird. Uh, but that's the fundamental, right? We're not trying to get a PAM solution, a ZTNA solution, and a DDoS solution, and blah 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 blah. What we're trying to do is keep companies with the ability to go to market and win. Give them the posture they need to win over and over and over again, and adapt in a way that allows them to fight Porter's five forces instead of fighting Conti ransomware groups and their equivalents.
Exactly, and that's where the ROI, which I know we both are big proponents of, that security is an investment. It's not a cost center. So I think those are the conversations that can move the needle. And then, yeah, if a TA wants to get up and running quickly, other than reading, and going online and seeing, the vendors will confuse the hell out of you. To your point, I remember one time you asked me, well, all these acronyms just around zero trust. And I kind of fudged it because I thought they were all the same thing. And then you educated me that there's actually even more that I didn't even know about. And so, yeah, I think going to vendors probably not necessarily the best, especially if they're trying to sell a silver bullet, but going to a partner like Avant to being able to understand more about, how do you get past the noise?
Can I riff on that for just a second? I'm going to take kind of a slightly opposing view.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, 6 years ago in the channel space, the vast majority of vendors did not know how to position security in general. In fact, many of the vendors in this space were companies that bolted on security to their own offerings. They weren't necessarily security companies.
Right.
I will say over the last 6 years, being able to watch the industry get better and better and better, I would say that as it just does a litmus test, many of the vendors are substantially better at talking about their ideal client profile, like that, like no BS. This is what we're good at, and this is what we do.
Hmm.
Here's how you can go find business with us.
Hmm.
They're, in general, significantly better, and I think we've passed that inflection point about 3 years ago, where uh, myself and you and other advocates in the industry have really been pushing to find the signal through the noise. And I'm not saying go blindly trust every supplier in the ecosystem, right? But what I will say is at least the content is better. I think we're probably out of the tunnel and we're starting to be out. Like we made it through the tunnel. We can see the light. We're outside. And now we're all just trying to figure out which direction do we go now that we're out of the tunnel.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's those differentiators too, being everything to everyone. I mean, I've made this analogy before where it's like, we don't want to be the cheesecake factory of security. We want to be the in and out. Like you're going to come for a burger. You're never going to see a chicken burrito on an in and out menu, or at least, not for the foreseeable future. And the same with the security providers. Definitely for us, that's our goal. Where we would say, hey, we'll do this, we'll do a pen test, we'll do these projects. And we're saying, no, we're the security program company. That's why you're coming to us. And so each vendor saying, hey, there's MDR vendors that we're doing fractional CISO, vCISO. They're shedding that now, or most of them should be, because they're saying, okay, this is our core competency. I think it's a fallacy to think, yeah, we can capture all this stuff and it's going to be land and expand. We've learned the hard way that it's better to just, differentiate and concentrate on what you're good at. So I think it's good to see that.
Well, and everybody has their own scope and scale.
Yeah.
right? So like for you guys, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
But there are some vendors out there that can do a substantial amount of things that their clients need. And that's why trusted advisors come to us to help shepherd them which direction they want to go.
That's right.
Like just because Lou can do pen test doesn't mean you should do just a pen test unless there's maybe follow-on opportunity and more of a meaningful outcomes driven monthly type OpEx spend.
Voila. Yep, exactly. So how do you feel that security in the channel is evolving? Already you've brought us kind of on a journey. Where do you think it's going? Is it going to continue to differentiate where vendors are going to really kind of hone in on the things that they're good at?
Yeah. So I think at a macro level, if we look at, we go back and look at a funding perspective, um, the vast majority of companies that are in the security landscape, like if you look at the Optiv cybersecurity map or some of those other landscape maps that are out there, uh, I think we're going to see a substantial number of AI security startups, which are going to tackle AI security in a number of different ways. But I think that's just one quadrant of that map. I think the rest of that map will actually consolidate. There'll be winners and losers, and we'll see fewer options across all of those different areas of that giant grid of all the other landscape that are out there. And we're seeing that with those consolidations. I think consolidation will be the name of the game. And I think that the majority of those acquisitions will actually be to round out one company's base and offerings for things that are adjacent that make sense. So like on the data security side, like data discovery, data classification companies are now starting to merge into really DPSMs, data posture security management, as like, again, who can touch what, where, when, why, and how, and can you audit it and maybe even block some of it if required. I think we're going to see a lot of that consolidation happening in the space, and it'll be fun to watch.
Oh yeah. And yeah, basically everything will be owned by Palo Alto soon. So
Well, they did make an early bet on APIs and bought a bunch of companies and continue to buy a bunch of companies that are API driven. But I also think that while they move fast, their ability to charge a premium on all of those companies that they bought is turning many clients away because they don't want to pay the premium.
yeah, and also it's kind of the McAfee model from 15 years ago, which is acquire everything and then poorly integrate it, give a promise of one single pane of glass, the elusive single pane of glass, and then don't execute on that. And I think that there's going to be a lot of growing pains there. Maybe in the new technology world we live in, and with a little bit of AI and ML, sprinkled on top, maybe they can come close to achieving it, but I think it's definitely the Palo Alto acquire everything and integrate it. It's a lot harder than expected. And you look at Google, if you want to see what they've done with some of the acquisitions. We'll see how Wiz goes, but I think consolidation to buy mind share and to kill competition. It may there jury's still out if that's a good thing or not. We'll see.
I don't know, but I think that in general the map will actually be smaller, especially because a lot of those venture backed companies are at the end of their cycle and they're looking for some sort of an exit,
Big time.
and their investors are demanding an ROI. And so we're going to continue to see these layoffs at the product vendors. And specifically right now, I'm talking about like the product vendor ecosystem, not the service provider
Right.
ecosystem.
Right.
But we're going to continue to see layoffs as they get closer and closer to those exits. So their price to earnings will go higher.
Yeah. Final question. I'm going to transition to more about Stefan.
Uh-oh.
What excites you about the future?
Oh man. There's a few things to kind of tackle this. I do tend to like a market that shifts and changes a lot frequently.
Yeah. It suits your personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I think anyone in cyber in security, it's like constant learning. We're kind of addicted to constantly learning, autodidacts.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Right. And like, the more chaos in the industry, the more opportunity there is.
Yep. 100%.
So it's fun to watch that. It's also fun to be at a distributor where we can also sort of shape that sometimes
Yeah.
and be a part of it. and figure out, when those consolidations happen or M&A, et cetera, like those changes, how do you message that and turn that into an opportunity so people can capture the opportunity there? I think is a blast. That's super, super fun. I also, um, some, I, I've cloud as well. And so, um, the uncertainty that Broadcom and VMware are injecting into the market is substantial. And so watching the market shift, and we talked about on-prem. So watching the market shift from like on-prem and hyperscalers towards that middle of like the colo and infrastructure as a service, and even those hyperscaler like partners that are out there, watching the kind of the client base compress towards the middle of that evolution change has been really interesting. I think that clients in general, companies, not even think, I'm watching this happen in real time, working with trusted advisors, clients out in the field, and at our battle labs at Avant in Chicago and Houston, Dallas. Um, Watching clients realize and rethink their entire cloud strategy is happening because of generative AI right now.
Do you mean because the data centers are getting they're expanding rapidly and compute is getting cheaper, or do you mean people are asking ChatGPT more?
Well, all of the above. But as we dig into it, like boards are asking their CIOs and CTOs, what are you building that's going to change the game? And that question, like they have to find a really interesting way to answer it. And there's two things that they need to do that are slowing them down. Number one is, how do they find the funds to build something that will change the game? And that means probably moving out of a colo or moving off of a hyperscaler because they didn't refactor their workloads.
Right.
And as that comes up, the second thing that's slowing them down is some of this uncertainty around virtualization in the market. And so when you tie price compression and a need to unlock dollars along with this, I got to go build some AI stuff, that's part of why we're seeing this compression towards the middle of like the colo, IaaS, and hyperscaler like partners that are out there. And so they're trying to find the dollars to make the investments to do this stuff, and it all happens because the board wants to know what they're building with AI to change the game.
Yeah, and Broadcom just completely destroyed VMware, and that strategy is very confusing to me, but I don't want to go too deep into that.
It's an interesting thing to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And it destroys. Obviously, there were a lot of SMBs that were, managed service providers, IT companies that were relying on that, and it really kind of destroyed their business model to a certain extent, or made them pivot really hard.
And it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah,
That like the whiplash, especially for those smaller MSPs and even some of the large ones that didn't make that list of 15 in North America. Boy, they're in a tight place right now, and they've got until October 31st to come up with a really good plan.
yeah, oh yeah, gonna be interesting. So
And then how do you secure it?
voila, voila. And so let's transition to you personally. I mean, listen, what got you here? I can say, you're in Chicago, originally from that area. Um, and West Point, you went to West Point for undergrad. First, like what made you want to? West Point is amazing, by the way. And I grew up not far from West Point, so I've got a soft spot for the cadets there, that used to tear the town up, the small town of
That's right. You're from Poughkeepsie, right?
Newburgh.
Newburgh. Oh, close. Okay.
Yeah. So not far from Poughkeepsie. Yeah. So Newburgh, there were a number of places, bars that, yeah, really interesting times. But yeah, what made you want to go Army and West Point?
Yeah. So my grandfather growing up, we'd be sitting around the table, and kind of the hero culture that we built in the family, that my grandparents on both sides of the family built, was um, that our family, on both sides of the family, we do hard things. But my grandfather would tell stories about men and women that did incredibly difficult things. So like reading Reader's Digest excerpts about like Amelia Earhart growing up, and Charles Lindbergh, and like these other notable people in history that did something that everybody else thought was crazy at the time, and the resilience of being able to get back up when things go wrong over and over and over again. Um, and then I saw that my grandfather was a business owner. My on the other side of the family, my family were farmers, and at one point had like a sawmill, and it was go do tough stuff. What's the hardest thing you can do? Go do that. And so I remember this distinct memory. I think it was junior year of high school. I was walking down the senior hallway, and they just put all of the uh, college and university posters all down the hallway, and everybody was kind of flocking over. It was in Illinois, so everybody was flocking over to like Illinois State and Illinois University and University of Chicago and all the local ones. University of Michigan was up there, and no one was looking at the one all the way down, which was West Point. And I was like, well, if everybody's doing all this stuff, it must be easy. So I'll go take a look at that.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
Yep. And it was a phenomenal experience. The exposure that I got to have there to people on on both sides of the aisle, congressmen, senators. Routinely we had like astronauts, other extraordinarily distinguished people, and one of my roles, because I had was closer to the top of my class. One of my roles was to kind of shepherd those people around, and I got to learn from them while I was showing them around West Point, explaining some of the history, and kind of being their executive assistant while they happened to be there. And every single one of them, when I asked them about how they got to where they are, almost all of them credited mentors and family people. They almost all had gratitude towards other people in their life that had helped them get through really tough things and overcome obstacles. And that worked well for me there. And then just kept picking the toughest things I could do for a long time. And life has given me some amazing sparring partners that have made me better at fighting this thing called life. It's been great.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have time to go into your deployment and stuff like that, and I'm sure you have amazing stories with that. And you are such a humble guy, Stefan, because you have this just absolutely amazing, CV. You've got two if I understand correctly,
Mhm.
you have two masters engineering, and then you got your MBA. How did that happen?
So, I had broken my back in Afghanistan, which we'll just gloss over for now. Um, and the Army didn't know if they were going to keep me or not. I was an airborne ranger at the time in the infantry. Army didn't know if they were going to keep me, and I said, "Well, I better be ready in case they, um, uh, launch me back into the civilian landscape."
Right.
And Illinois had this amazing veterans program, and still do, called the Illinois Veterans Grant, that paid for me to go to school. And I said, "Well, I have an electrical engineering degree. I might as well continue along that road and get a master's of engineering." And halfway through it, I realized that I was never going to be one of the best in the world at it. And I thought, and I had this this frustration of, um, and maybe it was a fear of, if I went to an amazing corporation and I invented something that was world changing, I would have to rely on sales and marketing to take that invention that I made and go actually change the world with it. And I was unwilling to let somebody else take, theoretically, unwilling to let somebody else, the success of something that could be world changing that I did build, if I got there, let it live and die in the marketplace. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to do that, how do I do it?
Yeah, you think about Nikolai Tesla, you think about Gutenberg. When you hear the stories of these inventors that actually didn't reap the profits of most of their inventions, it's
Yep.
really shocking.
And I didn't want to fall in that same pitfall, right? Like, and I'm not going to compare myself to Gutenberg and Tesla, but sometimes I got the occasional good idea.
So you pivoted to, well, you still got your master's, right, in engineering.
Oh, we finished what we start.
Yeah,
Well,
smart.
so I was actually I was in the last semester of the program, and well, I'm applying for the MBA. Actually, I was in the second to last semester, and applying for the MBA, and the University of Illinois MBA program. The dean reached out and he goes, "Let's get on a call." And he goes, "Are you going to do two masters at the same time?" I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm going to get in now. Then I'll defer a semester. I'll take 30 days off, and then I'll start your program from scratch because you're not going to take any of my credits that I've done anywhere else. So let's go."
Unbelievable. That is just really impressive, but not surprising considering, I think it was last year where you did 2, was it 2 triathlons or 2 marathons or so? What were you doing, like, in a
Oh yeah. Um, so I did the Chicago Triple Challenge, which was you do three triathlons in one weekend.
Jesus.
You do a really a short one on Saturday, and then on Sunday you're the first person in the water, the first group in the water for the Olympic distance, the international distance, and then once you cross the finish line, you hobble back to the start and you do a sprint. Um,
Wow.
and when you add all of the distance up, not quite a half. It's not quite a half Ironman. So a couple weeks ago, I did a half Ironman.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, so you're constantly doing challenging yourself, doing the hard stuff, and that's in addition to having a family, young children, and then immense responsibility for growing this security and cloud, portion and AI at Avant. So, I mean, just doesn't end, man.
Um, I could not do this, but for the fact that my wife lets me.
Aw,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's got her own, she's impressive too from what I know.
Oh yeah, she's an Army special operator nurse and has done all sorts of crazy stuff. She worked in the ER for a while, and now a nurse practitioner with a doctorate that works in a cardiovascular institute doing electrocardiology and like supporting crazy like pacemaker technologies.
Unbelievable, and from what I understand from nurse practitioners, they actually do 10 times the work that doctors do with the same level of knowledge, so it's a lot of respect there too. Your kids are going to either be absolute superhumans or they're going to be the laziest children ever because both of their parents are such high achievers. They're like, "What else do we have to do?" So
Well, that's actually Anna and I talk often. We talk a lot about how we're going to manufacture adversity for our children.
yeah, definitely. It's really important. Speaking of which, in like 5 minutes after this, I'm gonna be talking to my son about, certain responsibilities he has during summer and
Good.
making money.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, yeah.
important.
We got family duty.
That's right, that's right. So we're almost at time, I guess, last thing, I know you're doing scuba diving as well, which I can't believe. Are you doing that still? Is that still a high thing for you? High priority or
I haven't ran a class in a while, but we still get in a few dives a year, um, which is absolutely phenomenal. I got the scuba helmet behind me over here. Um, uh, uh, and heck, if I actually liked boats, maybe I would have gone in the Navy.
Yeah.
But same reason I didn't go into tanks. Oops. But yeah, no, we still get quite a few dives in a year, and you know, with my back, I can't really sustain teaching basic courses, but I try to run you know an advanced course or like a mixed air diving type of thing about every year or two, just to keep the dust off because that's kind of the retirement plan. So
Nice.
I went through all those instructor and dive master courses in the late aughts and just keeping it up and running and trying to stay current. So, you know, 30 years from now, I can ski in the winter and, you know, teach skiing and then teach scuba in the summer.
Yeah, maybe living in the Caribbean, we'll be seeing you with your own little bar.
Only one?
And
No, bro. I'm going to take over the whole intercontinental stuff.
yeah. Seven, where can people find you? We're gonna leave a list, but we've got LinkedIn and I'll post your LinkedIn, but obviously the Avant website. You've got your own personal website page as well. Any other places people can find you?
Yeah, I do the most these days on LinkedIn and through the Avant General channels. Um, I had been posting a lot more video on LinkedIn, and I found that the creativity it took me to do LinkedIn was taking away from my time with my children. The ability to, do storytelling at bedtime with my kiddos. So I've dialed back, but yeah, mostly on LinkedIn and through the Avant channels on goavant.net. And in fact, we've got webinars that they let me participate on about monthly. So you can join us there, and that's where we try to give the best tips and tricks, the visibility into the market, and convert those stories of what we're seeing happen into the simple selling motion that trust advisors expect from us today.
Amazing. So, Stephen Semmelroth, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lou. Glad to be here, and I hope this helps someone. And if it did, please pay it forward.
Thank you. Yeah, and for those of you that are watching and or listening, if you learned something today or laughed, please tell someone about this podcast. Thanks again, Stephen, and we'll see you again soon. That's a wrap for this episode of Channel Security Secrets. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes, guest info, and more episodes, visit us at channelsecuritysecrets.com. Channel Security Secrets is sponsored by Cyber Defense Group. When it comes to protecting your business, don't settle for reactive. Partner with experts who build resilience from the ground up.